Okay, folks, there is a recording in progress in case you didn't know. All right, welcome. It is April 9th, 2024. Yes, day after the eclipse. We actually saw something. My wife came running downstairs. She's like, look what I just found. She had these like eclipse glasses from whatever the last time was. We went outside and it was like, oh yeah, there's like a little bit of an eclipse here. And I did think the birds were acting weirdly, but I don't know. Was that just me? Yeah, it was. And just that little thing, like a quarter of the sun, you know, and the sun apparently is pretty important to Earthlings. So that's the news from Lake Berkeley. And we're going to meditate and then we're going to do some Dharma reflection. And let's see, I should that I think this week, I think it's the Spirit Rock week, Friday night. I should know. I'm teaching an awful lot this month, and as usual, I feel like I don't have anything to say until the time comes, and then I just spout stuff. So I don't know. I was just well, I'll just, talk a little bit before we get started. Just was thinking about how, like, if a camera, I think this is probably fairly universal, but I'll just speak for myself. If a camera, like, followed me around over the last 24 hours, they'd be like, well, you didn't really do anything. I mean, you sat at your computer and whatever. But in my head, I've covered like I've gone back 60 years and then and then I went back 30 years. There's like sort of some, I don't won't call them ghosts, but historical events in my life that have been rearing their head. I'm uh I'm I've started to see if I can find an agent to represent a novel that I wrote a while ago, and the search brought up the agent who represented my novel 30 years ago. And I'm like, well, that's really weird. She's still alive. So, and I'm still alive. So, uh, anyway, um, so we'll sit for 20 minutes and then we'll continue with the reflections from the Abhayagiri book, More Than Mindfulness. So as long as Eleanor is drinking coffee, I can have some water. Okay, folks. Mm. So just to enjoy, see if we can enjoy ourselves for 20 minutes of not having to create anything, just settling into your body. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, turning the attention inward, just feeling the flow of energy that pulls you through your life, pulls, pushes, whatever the sense of it is. All that thinking and figuring out, all that resistance and craving. Maybe touching something deeper than that, quieter than that, just being, letting the body lead the way by softening, settling, and then connecting with the breath, the in breath, the out breath. we could say that the breath substitutes for all those thoughts, just gives us a simpler way of being with ourselves. No figuring out the breath, no grasping or resisting, just breathing, just being here. The world will still be there. The world will carry on without us trying to solve it for 20 minutes. And so we let go of solving the world. We're invited to enjoy being. Just the experience of nature, like gazing at an eclipse. The breath is just as miraculous, just as much a pure expression of nature. This body taking care of itself without thinking, without solving. When we let go of all the fear, what do we find? When we bring mindfulness to our experience, you start to see the arising of energies and thoughts. And then we see the letting go, the settling back. We feel the flows of energy, physical, emotional, mental. We find ourselves caught up or lost in daydreams, plans, memories. And then we let go again, rediscover this moment. Hmm. All right. Good morning again. Um, hmm. So, yeah, I'm going through this wonderful book from Abhayagiri called More Than Mindfulness. It's a free book that you can download uh, as an ebook, or you can even write to the monastery and ask them to send you one. That's the basically the website. Abhaya means fearless. Giri means mountain. So the fearless mountain. Uh, and from what I read, Abhayagiri was one of two ancient monasteries in Sri Lanka. And there were two great monasteries, Amaravati and Abhayagiri. So Amaravati today is the monastery in England that was founded by Ajahn Sumedho, and it's now the abbot is now Ajahn Amaro, who was the first abbot of Abhayagiri here. So apparently Abhayagiri and Amaravati were sort of competing monasteries, and they would, depending on the king or whoever, the royalty would sort of determine who was the top monastery, which is the one that would get the most support from the royal family, and thus be sort of the alpha monastery. So over hundreds of years, it would sort of go back and forth. I think Amravati was kind of the leader, but Abhayagiri would occasionally take take the front. So a little history. Uh, Amaravati means the deathless realm. Uh, so Ajahn Amaro's name means deathless. So there you go. So back to the book, More Than Mindfulness. You know, uh, the subtitle is I'm looking at it, is widening the field of practice. And so you can tell from that title that they're kind of addressing the popular mindfulness movement and trying to encourage people to um, go beyond just mindfulness, and this particularly kind of refers to a practice as it's been kind of handed down through the Thai forest tradition of a kind of spacious awareness, sati sampajana, as Ajahn Sumedho often refers to. Sati is mindfulness, sampajana is clear comprehension. So it's in the simplest terms, it's kind of, instead of just trying to be really focused on the breath and be really concentrated on one thing, it's more to be aware of a broader field of awareness, the the different realms of experience, the feeling realm, the mental realm, uh, the the kind of spatial or a realm of just awareness itself. So in any case, we're on the chapter by Ajahn Viradhammo called Mindfulness, Vitality, and Inquiry, which refers to the first three factors of enlightenment. So he introduces the chapter by saying that he's going to talk about the factors of enlightenment, but there are seven, and as far as I can tell from the chapter, he only talks about three, but three is good. And last week we talked just about the first factor, the mindfulness. And then the second factor is uh, investigation of states. excuse me. Uh, so this is there's a lot of lists in Buddhism where we encounter kind of the same things, like mindfulness shows up on a lot of different lists, and equanimity shows up on a lot of different lists, and effort, and we sort of, you know, they all seem to be, part of, we sort of see them as having multiple functions and appearing in different ways and being talked about in different ways. Investigation of states, uh, I've only ever seen it, specifically referred to in this list, whereas the other factors of enlightenment, the seven factors are mindfulness, investigation of states, energy, joy, uh, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. So equanimity, concentration, joy, these show up in many areas, but investigation of states really just here. And yet, it's such a key element, certainly of Vipassana meditation. Vipassana meaning to see clearly. So to see clearly is a kind of investigation. And just to bring it to recovery, investigation, we can make certainly a direct parallel to the inventory process. Uh, but the implication of investigation of states, first of all, that states suggests something, right? And we have to be careful when we get into this language, because in English, investigation can kind of sound like we're going to think about it. But with mindfulness practice, it's not about thinking about it. It's really feeling it and trying to just be aware of and observe and see. And it's particularly, I would say, refers to cause and effect, like how things arise and how they pass away. But let me get into the notes I have on this chapter. Uh, the first thing I have is a quote from Ajahn Viradhammo. Sometimes Buddhism is called a phenomenological practice. Yeah, okay. That means that in understanding the mind, we try to observe the mind, body, emotions, and moods as phenomena in nature rather than as personal problems. Well, in a way, that sums up the entire uh, point of this investigation of states, and obviously points to the critical idea of self or not self, um, and how we might connect with that idea of not self. Oh, not self is, a well-known Buddhist teaching, but it's also something that people often ask about and want a kind of logical the explanation of, and and people struggle with the idea because our felt experience and our experience of being, of being a human being, is that we are somebody, that we are separate. This idea of investigating our experience, exp investigating our mental, physical, emotional experience as phenomena rather than personal problems, I think can really help us to understand this idea on a felt level, to experience it. And so this is what we do, really. If you're doing something like noting, you're just saying, oh, thinking, hearing. So what you're doing is you're pointing out that these phenomena are being are occurring, that there is a thought occurring, that there is a sound being heard. And that's seeing them as phenomena rather than as personal. We don't note by saying, I am having a thought or I am hearing something. We just say, thinking. Thinking is happening, hearing is happening, seeing is happening, feeling is happening. He goes on, then he talks about how when you observe thoughts and feelings, you start to see how they affect your breathing, as he says, your guts and your memory. And this is what I've started calling interconditionality, that everything we experience affects everything else. So body, feelings, mind, they're all intertwined. And this is, again, this is all really very not self-oriented in a very natural way, because again, we're just seeing that things are just happening in relation to each other. There isn't a self running the show. It's just phenomena. It's a thought arises, a feeling shows up with that thought. My breath gets shallower or deeper when I have that feeling. And it's just a system. It's just an ecosystem. The understanding of resentment, he says, is the freedom from resentment. I don't have to become a victim of it. Well, this certainly resonates in the recovery language, which talks so much about resentment. The understanding of resentment is the freedom from resentment. In other words, when I see it as phenomena, when I see it as just a thought, when I see the resentment as just something appearing, I'm not attached to it. It's only when I am caught in the resentment, when I'm living it out, when I'm playing it out, that I am captured by it. He says it is a lot simpler to understand resentment as a phenomenon in consciousness than to be lost in the endless scenarios of resentment, to be lost in the endless storylines. Thoughts are very complicated. This is kind of what I was talking about at the beginning today, about how if you had observed me over the last 24 hours, it wouldn't have looked like I was doing very much. It would have looked like my life is kind of simple. And yet the travels of the mind, the journeys of the mind, make it so much more complicated. And you know, I don't want to, you know, suggest that there's something wrong with that, because our minds are quite amazing, and it is interesting and meaningful, I think, to reflect on our experience. And as we go through our lives and we look back and we think about conditionality and how we came to be the way we are and how our lives came to be the way they are and who we are, and how we've been, how we've affected the world, how we've affected others. This is part of life, is these kind of reflections. But when it's leading to dukkha, then we don't, it just doesn't, it's not helpful. There's no reason we have to stay caught up in it. So I think that the idea to me is to be able to think about these things, but not take them personally in the, it's sort of make a total sense of it being personal. Of course, in some level, it's personal. It has to be personal because it's like, the memory that only I have. And one of the things that happened to me one of the things I've been reflecting on is this person from, was a friend 60 years ago who was talking about an experience that a time when we were together. And I realized that that person's memory was completely different from my memory. And and so, yeah, that's my memory. That is personal. But we can, if we, we can separate it in the sort of typical way in Buddhism of between the or sort of ordinary view of experience, and then the more universal, or you know not the impersonal way. And we can see that, oh, well, that's just a being just going through experiences, and then there's a story that's me, and the personal versus the universal, you know, is is an important balance to keep. I mean, if we just live in this sort of like everything is empty view of the world, I remember hearing um, Ram Dass many years ago, speaking of history, saying that one time he was with Alan Watts, and Alan Watts telling him, you're attached to emptiness," and saying something like, "Well, if there's no self, then can I have your wallet?" You know, sort of like, okay, well, wait. Uh, yeah, and so that's that to me is, I would call it spiritual maturity, being able to hold these two truths, these absolute and relative truths together, uh, without becoming lost in either one. So that, in a way, our stance is to not identify with or become attached to either of these, which really takes this state of investigation, right? We have to be investigating and be awake and aware in a moment to see, oh, where am I caught? How am I caught right now? And so mindfulness is always the bell, like, because this is why I talk so much about being attuned to feeling, because the feelings that arise are the first indicator of dukkha, right? That's how dukkha manifests, as a feeling. And if we catch the dukkha as it arises, then we can see, oh, I'm attaching there. Oh, let me just come back and remember to view this in a more balanced way, you know. So then Ajahn Viradhammo says, he starts to talk about how paying attention to feelings in the body, sounds like he and I are on the same page, literally right here. Uh, how paying attention to feelings in the body is much simpler and more effective than analyzing them. He says the body is a tremendous place to understand the mind. The mind and the body are very much co-linked. When I feel resentment, my body feels it. I have moods and emotions, thoughts and memories. All of them register in the body. My breath channel gets clogged when I feel anxiety. It's a very funny little turn of phrase he has there. My breath channel gets clogged when I feel anxiety. Yeah. So again, just being attuned to the body, to feelings. And when I talk about feelings, I'm talking about feeling through the body. So they're interconnected. He says, you're not trying to get rid of a problem. Quote, you are simply understanding that this is the way it feels. Quite often we make negative experiences a problem, and then we try to fix them. We can get terribly complicated with that. This very simple opening and receptivity to something unpleasant like anxiety is a wonderful freedom. Yeah. Again, just very, simple, but you know, counterintuitive, you know, not trying to get rid of the problem, just trying to feel it, not trying to solve problems. So, this brings to mind, and I was looking for this book. I don't know if I gave it away. I need to get another copy. The Mindful Way Through Depression, which talks about how uh, depressive states happen because we try to solve emotional problems with the mind. And that puts the mind in conflict with the emotions because what it's saying is that the emotions are not okay. And so I have to fix them or change them. But there's no mechanism for that, right? The thinking about the problems makes the problem more painful. It just accentuates the problem. And, this is, again, a very natural and intuitive way to deal with problems because mind is the forerunner of all things. We think of our mind as being the thing that's running the show. So my mind should be able to solve problems. Like if the car breaks down, my mind will figure out how to fix the car. But if my heart breaks down, if my emotions break down, it my mind can't fix that. There's no fan belt in there to replace. So there's this counterintuitive process, which is don't turn away, don't try to fix, do something. Turn toward, breathe into, be with, allow it. And then again, the underlying understanding of this is that this is not me and it's not permanent. And so if I see, so what is it? What is a feeling? Well, what I like to the word I like to use is energy. Just that a feeling because energy to me suggests something somewhat neutral. It just has it has power and movement, but it doesn't have meaning. Energy doesn't have meaning. Moods and emotions and thoughts, they have meaning to us. We attach meaning to them. And so a feeling shows up and I say, I feel this. And that's then reifying that. It's making it real. It's also making it me and mine. And then the thoughts that connect with that, the memories that connect with that, the beliefs that connect with that. And meanwhile, while all this is going on in my mind, my body is taking in all this feeling and getting absorbed in it in a painful way. And the mood, is getting enveloped by this. So the process that we're talking about is stepping out of that viewpoint. So this is right view. So here we go. We're getting, the whole Dharma, right? As it is. Every piece of Dharma connects to every other piece of Dharma. So we step back, we go, oh, what if I just applied mindfulness to this experience and felt it just as not me, not mine, not a story, but just a feeling, just an energy, just a sensed experience? What would it be? Oh, that's unpleasant. Now we're over in another, right? Oh, wait, unpleasant. That sounds like something in Buddhism too. Like, oh, right, Vedana, the second foundation of mindfulness. This is why it's good to understand the Dharma, like, because it all fits together, but you kind of have to have some ideas about it. Oh, that's just feeling. And there are only three kinds of feeling. It's not complicated. It's not like there's all these layers of, the DSM to go to your feelings, the DSM-5, and there's like 5,000 different emotions. No, there's three: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So I feel something unpleasant. I breathe. I don't make a story. I just feel it. And what do I see? I see energy. I see movement. I see unpleasant. I keep breathing. If I keep paying attention, I just see that it subsides. Now, I was reading, I really recommend this book, Judson Brewer's book, The Craving Mind. I was reading it yesterday about about working with people who were trying to quit smoking. And one of the things that they found and that people find when they try to do this is that the craving for a cigarette comes up and it's very powerful. But if you don't act on it, after several minutes, it goes away. And then it comes back on depending upon how addicted you are. It comes back but of course, when you don't act on it, every time it comes back, it's got a little less power, a little weaker and weaker. And the same applies to our emotional life. If when a feeling comes up, we just absorb into the story and the history and the solving it and all of that, we're just feeding it and it gets more embedded in us. But if it just comes up and we go, oh, there's that's unpleasant. I'm going to breathe and I'm going to move on and maybe I'm going to bring in some wholesome quality. What if I address this with loving kindness? Or what if I call a friend or I go to a meeting? I go to the gym. I do, what if I just go to my job, show up and work, just live my life instead of spending it like absorbed in my story. It just passes, right? Just passes. It's such a powerful and simple message that's so hard to absorb. And it's why we keep practicing and practicing and reflecting and reflecting and observing and, our daily practice, catching yourself wherever you are, like, oh, here comes this feeling. Oh, there's a story. Oh, wow. Because when I go back to 60 years ago, I was 14. And that was the year I started to see a psychiatrist. Well, yeah, it was a big story that I built up that, 4 years after that, I was in a mental hospital. I mean, it took a while. There was a lot of shit. And who knows, causes and conditions, where did that all come from? But it's not easy to break those habits that started when you were 14 or 12 or 9 or 16, that you lived with for decades and until you were like, wait, what? I got sober, 20 years later. And that was 39 years ago. And it all just seems like yesterday. Okay, well, I'm not going to get through all my notes on this section of the book today because it's so rich. So I'm gonna just open it up. I can't stay too late today. So um, anybody want to jump in and reflect?
My name's Leslie. I'm here in Tucson, and I've always wanted to ask you about, because it kind of goes with this too, is nobody cares. I remember you saying that. I'm like, holding the two truths. Well, maybe they do care, maybe they don't, and they seem to really care when they complain. And so I was like wondering what your thoughts were on that.
I'm losing the thread a little bit. Nobody cares about like my problems. Is that what you mean?
I was like, nobody cares. I can go about my life and and do the things I need to do. But then when somebody really seems to care, they're complaining about me. There's something that's not quite right. And, how do I stay in the no self thing? It's just really, really difficult, but it just takes practice.
Well, we don't stay in the no self thing. That's impossible. Uh, I I won't say it's impossible because I don't know if it's impossible. Maybe it's possible. It's not possible for me. I don't think it's possible for ordinary worldlings. It's about remembering. It's about snapping out of it, you know. So if you're snapping out of it, you're snapping out of selfing. So it's So but snapping out of it is like, oh, look where I am. I don't have to believe all this. And that doesn't mean like, oh, okay, everything went away now. There's a residue of emotion when we remember. And that's a really critical moment in mindfulness practice when we wake up. Because when we wake up, typically we're in a state of dukkha. There is some discomfort there because we're waking up from our delusion, waking up from our selfing. And so in that moment, it's, much like recovery, it's like when you first get sober, it's painful. It's not like, oh, I stopped drinking. It's just so great. It's like, oh God, and and so the same way, I wake up from selfing and it's like, oh, there's this residue. And it's very easy then to relapse in that moment back into selfing because the old story is kind of lingering there. It's the residue of it is there, the residue of the feeling is there, and it's very easy to go, oh yeah, that whole thing, it's me, and that's my problem, and I really do have to think about it. And so it really takes that persistence and why it is helpful to have some dharma in your head that you can kind of go, oh, wow, I was just doing that thing and I just want to stop right now. Let me take a breath, let me, apply these principles to this moment. But it's a daily grind, frankly. I mean, it's life, and it doesn't seem to get easier. It just, but certainly wisdom becomes more prevalent in the mind and the heart, and mindfulness becomes stronger, and we can get to a point where there's definitely a pretty radical change from the ordinary way of being. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what came up. It's nice to hear from you, Leslie. Thank you for joining in. And Perusi, you've been
Hello.
perusing.
What's
I,
that?
I mean, I just, I'm sure, when it's never good to make fun of people's names but
No,
the
it's not.
the word perusing just came to mind. So
Oh, well, that's not making fun. That's just playing with words,
playing with words
language.
and usually, if you notice something about somebody's name, it's probably something they've heard 50,000 times in their life. So,
I haven't heard that one.
no, okay, good. Original genius. How you doing, Ann?
I'm really good, actually. I'm
Hmm.
really good. I have, you know, just a lot about just beautiful day yesterday, and I had a chance to really just bask in the glory of springtime,
Hmm.
outside and oh man. Um, no, when you said remembering, it's about remembering, and of course
Hmm.
sati to remember, and
Yep.
yes, it's a daily grind. Yeah. And there's like all these great surprises when we remember.
Yeah.
Well, we don't remember, I think, right? It just
Remembering happens.
remembering happens, right?
Well,
And
yeah, I always bring a very positive slant to things. So the daily grind, life
it's
is
true
wonderful.
though.
It's a daily grind, but then it's like grinding. You get some nice
Yeah.
salt in your life.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not
No,
letting
no,
you
that's
talk.
good. It's like, well, it's like there's suffering and the causes of suffering, there's happiness and the causes of happiness.
That's right, the end of suffering.
The end of suffering. Anyway, but what I wanted to, so I had one of these experiences yesterday, and it was it. Well, because you've ridden in the car with me going down Highway 1 or up Highway 1 around Santa Cruz. It is completely transforming, right, into this like
Yeah,
major city
yeah, it really
highway, and
is.
it's
Yeah,
and I they're doing it near my house too now, and I had no idea they were doing that. So anyway, the whole point is they're cutting down trees, just upending huge trees, and it's like they're like these machines that make it look like they're dust bunnies all in a pile or something. And it just gets to me. And I was driving down the highway last night, and I was just looking around going, oh my, and they got rid of a bridge, and then there's just huge gaping holes in the, oh my God.
God.
Right? And it's like,
Everything keeps changing. It's really annoying.
oh my God. And it really gets to me. And so all of a sudden, driving down, it's like a few miles down where I'm with my husband, we're talking about it and mad, all this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, letting go. What is beautiful right now?
Mm.
And that is a line, a mantra that I picked up from Gil Fronsdal, one of our retreats this past year.
Mm.
And it's the one thing that's really stuck with me.
Mm.
It's my practice mantra that stuck with me. There's philosophical things that stuck with me, but it's just when that can come up in the midst of all the story and the attachment to the story, the clinging, the pain. Oh my God, so much pain in my body. But letting go, what is beautiful right now. And, of course, I look at my husband, he's driving, and, it's just,
Yeah.
Anyway, beautiful teaching. I love that book.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying reminds me kind of of awakening joy,
Oh yeah.
and actually one of the chapter by Ajahn Sona, or I'm not sure if it's Sona or Sonia, but anyway, gets into and reminds us about joy, and it's interesting that he says that we're supposed to let go of all the unwholesome, but we're supposed to hold on to the wholesome.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, right? Because he's like, don't be like when joyful feelings or, wholesome feelings, I'll say, arise. Don't be like, oh, everything's impermanent, just let it go. No, like encourage it, welcome it, and invite it, and try to sustain it. Because that's the right effort, right? The fourth right effort is to sustain the wholesome states that have arisen. It doesn't say let go of the wholesome states that have arisen. You let go of the unwholesome states. So that's a great mantra.
Yeah.
Letting go what is
Beautiful, right? What is beautiful right now?
What is beautiful right now? Yeah.
It's been such a beautiful rediscovery. You said something in meditation too about in any moment, like we can rediscover the mind or the heart. And it's like that's one of those moments. I'm rediscovering this moment. Like what's beautiful? Like, yeah. There's so much beauty. Oh my God, like the springtime.
Yeah.
The eclipse.
Yeah.
I mean, the breath, what you said about the breath is like the mysteries in the breath. It's like it's with us all the time.
Yeah.
So thank you for your teaching today.
Thank you. Thank you. I need to go, so I'm going to close, but I'm going to just stick around with Eleanor for a few minutes, so I'll let everybody else take off. So thank you all for coming, and see you on Friday. Sunday, I'm going to be at the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Tonight, I'm in Napa. Did I mention that? Tonight in Napa Valley Insight Meditation, if you're in that area. Great little group.
Peace out.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
All right, Mike. Nice to see you.
See you.
Get them long and straight today, Kevin. Okay.
What's that?
Get them long and straight today. Okay.
Oh yeah, you can always tell when I'm wearing this that I'm going out. I'm going to play golf. Yes.
I played my first tournament yesterday and did pretty. So yeah, I'll talk to you later about that stuff.
All right. Love to hear about it.
All right. Take care.
Very good. Yeah. Okay.
So, Kevin, hi.
Hi.
Hi, this is, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to miss Friday night, which I usually don't, the Spirit Talk night, because of something really interesting is happening in my Dharma life here in Grass Valley. Last week, we met 5 of us had been planning to have a Buddhist recovery meeting at Mountain Stream Meditation Center.
Yeah.
And Angela's one of them, and I'm one of them, and there's 4 other people in that Sangha. And
Mm,
last night we met for the first time with a tiny bit of publicity, and 14 people showed up for the Friday
wow.
meeting.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's just all these intervening days since Friday night, I've just been on this, just reviewing and rehearsing what happened, how we got where we're at. It just feels super exciting to have a place, an established mindfulness center that said, yeah, come on in.
Yeah,
We'll have a recovery meeting here.
that's
And
great.
we're using, because it was easiest to communicate to the staff and the board of directors of Mountain Stream, we're using the Recovery Dharma second edition book as our format.
Mhm.
But I'm going to lobby strongly for, this is not the only Buddhist path to supporting your recovery. And just what you said today enriches my ability to be in a group like that and say, just keep trying what you know how to do. Sit still and notice what comes up. I'm just
Yeah.
so excited about it. And I
That's
wanted
great.
to let you know.
Yeah, that's really good news. And, when I've taught up there, it's always been a big turnout. So I know that there's a interest in that area. It's not like, even though it's a very, not a dense population,
Mhm.
uh, the population, there's definitely a big population interested in. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
wonderful. I'm really glad you're doing that, Eleanor.
It feels so cool. And the last week there was a moment when one of the people on the staff said, oh yeah, and there's always Kevin Griffin. So I had a minute to explain that you're my main teacher. And the question, of course, came up, do you think we could get Kevin? And I said, I don't know, maybe, yeah. So I'm giving
What,
you,
what do you mean? I don't know. Of course you can get me. I'm a pushover.
I know, but I want there to be a bunch of people who, um, especially the people on the staff who really do still have a little bit of what happens if we let all these drunks in the door
Mhm.
going on. I want that to be able to abate a little bit. And one of the 5 people planning this thing is a guy who's been in that Sangha for 15 years. And he says half the people that come through the door are in recovery. So
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you, but I just, the moment was right for me to say,
Yeah.
see you Friday. It won't always be the case that I'll need to not see you on Fridays ongoingly, but right now I need to be in this other room that night.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting me know. Well, you showed up on Thursday night, so
Yeah, because I have to buff up my Dharma dude thing here. So
All right, dear. So nice to hear all that and to see you. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. I
All right.
appreciate it more than you know.
Okay.